Hello and welcome to this webinar on terminating the client retainer. Yes, very much a case of navigating the minefield. It's something which really a number of firms will have considered recently in the context of relatively recent developments with regard, for example, to sanctions. In addition, the general requirements when seeking to terminate a client retainer, should be considered carefully. So in this session, I'll be reviewing both the legal and professional conduct obligations involved in ceasing to act and in addressing the risks that can arise from that. Just a little bit of my background, which is a solicitor in private practice, a partner in a medium-sized firm, and then subsequently acted as a risk manager with a professional indemnity insurer, and then also undertook a project in line with I was invited to join a project run by the SRA on risks relating to particular types of firms. And that gave me obviously an insight into both the regulatory obligations and also insurer perspectives. But really, most of my time now is spent on advice, consultancy advice and training on regulation, risk and compliance. So let's just dive in and see the areas we're going to cover. And I think really when it comes to the question of whether or not to terminate a client retainer, I think it's absolutely essential that in a sense you start right at the beginning. Who's instructing us? You're generally free to decide whether or not you accept instructions from a particular client. There are, of course, potential risks to the firm, the sort of risks that you would address initially through conflict of interest searches, undertaking adequate client due diligence for the purposes of anti-money laundering. And so these are the sort of things that you would undertake at an earlier stage as possible without actually engaging the client because of the concerns possibly that you can't act due to the fact that a conflict is identified or that the client due diligence you undertake is unsatisfactory. And therefore, if you had already started to act, then there'll be a real risk, therefore, of the possibility of tipping off, obviously, an offence under the Proceeds of Crime Act, money laundering regulations. So what we need to do, having identified the risks, is then really set out the responsibilities of the parties, both in terms of the firm